Hey, what's up guys? It's Dave again. Today, I'm going to explain to you how you can record your band live at the gig using one of these machines. This is a Tascam 414 Mark II. It's a 4-track cassette recorder. And if you follow this channel, you know I'm way into cassette recording. I've got several other videos on it that you can check out. And I also want to give a shout out to my good friend Mike over at 424 Recording. His channel is called 424 Recording, and the 424 is the big brother of this guy, which I do not have, but they're awesome machines, both of them. But anyway, yeah, definitely go check out his channel. He's got a whole bunch of videos about recording on these things. But today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to break down a recording that I made at a gig a few years ago, and it's been up on my YouTube channel. I'm going to put the link in the description. So this was at a gig on New Year's Day 2015. We had the normal 3-person setup, guitar, bass, drums, and we also had a sax player with us that night. So I thought it would be cool to do some old school Junior Walker, and we played the song Shotgun by Junior Walker. If you listen to the record, you'll kind of hear the sort of live band playing in a room vibe that recording has, and it really makes for a perfect setting to do it again with one of these things. We had bass, guitar, drums, sax, and 3 vocals, and we had to record all of that with 4 tracks, and we had to use the mics that I already had on me. So I did this pretty bare bones, pretty on the fly. There was no testing, there was no like listening to playback to see how everything was coming out. I kind of just plugged it in, hit record, and that's what came out. So here's how I did it. I used the quote-unquote dick mic on the drums, which was one of these, SM57. And I've got a video on this too. It's I'm going to put that link in there. It's called the $50 drum sound. I bought this mic used for $50. It's an old SM57. Basically what you do is you put it right in the middle of the kit, and it picks up a nice balance of the whole kit. So that was the drum mic. I ran that into I believe channel 1 on this machine. And this machine happens to have 2 XLR inputs on the back, and each track also has a 1/4-inch input, so you can use either one. It also has a guitar jack, like it's got the impedance for a bass or a guitar. But the way I did it, I think, was all with mics. The mic was over the drums, straight into channel 1 on the back. Bass was mic'd, there was a cabinet. I mic'd it with an SM57 also, but it's I don't have it with me at the moment, but it's just an SM57. You can get a windscreen, like a foam windscreen that's made for it. It's made by Shure, and it's got like a little metal collar around it. So you put it over there, and I just hung it in front of the bass cabinet, and that was what I did for the bass. Then the guitar amp, I used an SM58, which is, you know, very, very similar mic, but it has a ball windscreen on it, and I just hung that in front of my guitar amp. That went into channel 3. Channel 4 is the interesting one, because basically what I had to get the vocals and the sax out into the PA mains, right? And they had to be all mixed and stuff for the live crowd that was there. But then I had to get all of that also onto 1 track. So what I did was I plugged it into my speaker. It's a powered speaker, and it has an output, so you can daisy chain into another speaker. I did have them daisy chained, but what I did was I took the output of the second speaker, ran that with an XLR to 1/4-inch adapter into channel 4. So I've got all the vocals, which is really mainly 2 vocals on this particular song, but the vocal mix and the sax were all on channel 4, all on track 4. So that's the whole band recorded with 4 tracks with as few mics as possible. So there's a couple of different ways you can do a live recording. One of them would be to just take the mix from your mixer that's going to the house, okay? But if you do that, that is assuming that your mix that the audience is hearing is perfect for what needs to be on the recording. And that may not be the case, because when we play smaller rooms, you know, a guitar amp and a drum set and a bass amp are plenty loud for the room, and they don't need to be mic'd. And miking them is just going to give you a nightmare of feedback, and, you know, so we don't do that. Normally what we have going through the PA is just vocals and kick or something like that. And obviously if you just record vocals and kick, it's not going to be a great mix to listen to later on. But there are a couple other scenarios that might come up. For instance, if you're trying to record live, let's say you have a bigger band than we had. We only had a 4-piece band: bass, guitar, drums, sax. If you have an extra guitar player, or if you have, you know, all these other things, it may be a little more difficult. So what you're going to have to do is have things share tracks. One thing you can do, if you have a sub mixer that you can use, get a really small mixer. You can mix drums, bass, maybe even a rhythm guitar all onto one track. That's a possibility. And then you could have your other guitar on another track. You could have your lead vocals on another track. So it gets more complicated when you have more things, but it's possible. Another thing you could do is if you have two guitar amps that are next to each other, you could feasibly use one mic to record both of them. Again, you have to be kind of creative in order to make things work when you have a limited number of tracks. And by the way, this was all done with no overdubs, and that was the whole idea. It's a live gig. There's no overdubbing. So anyway, there are different things you can do. But if you've got a bass, guitar, drums, power trio, this method works great for that. And that brings us to mixing. So there's several ways you can go about mixing on one of these machines. The old way that I used to do it was I would take the RCA outputs, the line out, which is right here on this machine, and I would run it into a tape deck, you know, just your regular old stereo 2-track tape deck, and I would record that. That would be my mix down deck. And what I used to do back in the day was I would just make a bunch of copies of the tape. One potential problem with that is that every time you go down another generation of tape, you lose a little bit of quality. So if you're going from the first recorded tracks down to a second tape deck, first of all, the tape deck runs at standard speed. This runs at a higher speed, so it's a little bit better sounding. You might lose a little quality just because of that, but also because it's a second generation recording of a tape, it does lose some quality. And then every time you make copies of that tape from your master, that is going to lose another generation of quality. So that's an issue that I used to struggle with, but I don't really do that anymore because mostly it ends up in digital. So if you're going the digital route, there's a few different ways you can go about this. This particular machine does not have individual tape outs. So there are some tricky things you can do to get around that. You can use the monitor outs, the line outs, the effect outs, do some tricky workarounds to get individual tracks out, and you could send them to 4 different channels on your computer. Then you can mix them on your computer. Some machines, like another machine that I've used, it's way over there. I've got a video on this one too. It's the 464, which is an older, more full-featured 4-track machine. It does have tape outs, so I'll just plug in the RCA outs, and I have an adapter that goes to XLR. Plug that straight into the interface, mix on my computer. But that's not what I did in this case. This was such a simple setup, and it sounded so good just straight out of the machine. I didn't really feel that there was a lot of mixing to be done. So what I did was I just took the line out, and I connected the left and right into 2 channels on my interface, and that was my mix. I did use some effects. This machine has an effect send and return, 2 different effects that you can use. I think I just used the one though. It was just it was a guitar pedal, Electro-Harmonix, Holy Grail, reverb, and I just dialed in a little bit of reverb on some things and mixed it into the computer. I think once it was on the computer, I did a little bit of compression and maybe some EQ. It's been a while, so I don't quite recall every detail, but that's the mix. It just sounded pretty darn good from the beginning. So I don't want you to think that there was a ton of processing done afterwards. It sounded great, if not better, coming straight out of the tape deck. And that's an interesting thing that I've noticed, is that sometimes you have this like vibe that comes out of an analog recording, and as soon as you get it to digital, it loses a little something. But you know, that's part of the challenge, is to try and retain as much of the vibe as you can when you mix it when it hits digital. So anyway, I really hope this helps. I've got a lot more videos coming up that I want to do soon. Some of them are recordings, some of them are, you know, just performances, some of them are lessons, all these different things. So let me know in the comments what you want to see, what you want me to talk about. I'll be glad to do it. And make sure you run over to 424 Recording if you're interested in finding out more about this, and check out my other videos on 4-tracks and analog recording. Have some fun with that. Click all the links. So anyway, as always, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. I'll talk to you next time.